Hey Rob, how are you?
Very good. Very good. It's spring. A spring morning here is lovely. Sun shining. All the trees are blossoming. I went out for an early walk down to the beach, and the fragrance in the air is amazing.
Nice. Yeah, no, I haven't. I've only seen sun, and for the last 10 months, we've been here in Arizona. We don't get the winter.
That's nice. That's nice. Yeah. Get some heat though, huh?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I'll take it. I'll take it. I know. You had said last time we were chatting there was it was either a book or something you were reading that you wanted to talk about, and
Yeah. I've just really started to read about and research a little bit about conscious streaming, and um, the way that started really was well, back in the 1970s when I studied social anthropology at university. In the first year, one of the texts was a Carlos Castaneda book, because he was an anthropologist, and I think his PhD was around working with the guy Don Juan down in Mexico. So,
yeah.
which was pretty mind-blowing stuff back then. So I've always had an interest in that, and I think I still got that book that I bought as a poor student, my text, the paperback version of the teachings of Don Juan. So then when I met Jessica, who's part of the boot camp and the Ascension experience, I discovered that she had been a direct student of Carlos Castaneda, which is a pretty big deal. And so she has a lot of knowledge around that stuff. And then she introduced me to one of his other books. I'll find the name on my Kindle while we're talking. And then so I started talking to her a little bit about the concept of conscious streaming. Um, I don't know much about it, but it sounds like that's got to be fun, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So for many years, I have had this thing that happens periodically, that I'm in a dream and I kind of will myself up and I can fly and soar over the landscape. So it's quite exhilarating. And when I wake up, I think, oh, damn, that was a dream. No, I can't do that. Like, it's so much fun. I just kind of will myself forward, and it happens. But anyway, so conscious dreaming is a different thing. I'm just going to have a look in my library. Yeah, so the Art of Dreaming is the one by Carlos Castaneda, is the one that she recommended. So I've got that on my Audible and I'm listening to it. It's very good. So she talks about techniques for doing that, but one of them is that you go to sleep with the intention of becoming conscious in a dream, and then you need to remember in the dream to actually look at your hands. So if you look at your hands, apparently that is a pathway into becoming conscious in a dream, so that you know you're in the dream and you have some consciousness around it. And what I discover there when I finally do it, and what I can do, I will let you know.
So what's the difference between sort of this conscious streaming and dream, just daydreaming?
um, well, daydreaming is basically letting your mind wander freely, which it's slightly similar to a meditative state, really. I mean, daydreaming is quite hard to do deliberately, isn't it? You get into a bit of a reverie, or whatever you want to call it, and then you realize, my mind's just been wandering freely for the last whatever, and how good that feels. And I guess there's no resistance in that state. But dreaming is when you're fast asleep, and there are many theories and there's a lot of research around dreaming, but it's possible that we don't really know much about it at all, and that this conscious dreaming is a path to understanding what it really is all about.
Okay. It's interesting. So the idea is the method is to, when you, I guess, think you're dreaming, to sort of just, what do you do? Like lean into it, or what is the?
Well, I'm just going to find what her hint that she gave me. So it's when you're asleep, though, right? So first of all, you actually have to be asleep, and then you somehow need to have resolved beforehand, before you go to sleep. Dreaming, just searching conscious dreaming. Oh, here we go. Tapping away on my Evernote. Right. So Jessica said, go to sleep with the intention of looking for your hands in your dream. When you see them in your regular dream, you'll remember your intent. Hold your hands up in front of your face and look at them from all angles to maintain your focus. Realize that you are dreaming and that you are now conscious within your dream. If you can hold your attention, look around and notice what you see, all the while saying or thinking that you're dreaming and conscious. That is the first step.
Okay.
So it sounds like an adventure, really.
It does. I like it. It's
Yeah.
funny, but some mornings when I meditate, like this morning was interesting. I knew I had to do like a 15-minute meditation, and it lasted kind of like almost 30 minutes. And I either completely fell asleep, or I'm not even quite sure, but all of a sudden I was startled out of it, and I was like, holy cow, it's whatever, 30 minutes, and I thought I was doing it for 10 minutes. That's always interesting to me too. It's like sometimes you get into the meditative state,
Yep.
and you lose track of time, and you have no idea, what's going on the outside. It's all just sort of on the inside.
Yeah.
It's interesting that whole conscious streaming. I'm gonna look at that. The Art of Dreaming.
The Art of Dreaming by Carlos Castaneda. Yeah. So it's I got it on Audible, but you can buy it in various formats.
Yeah, I'm an Audible guy too.
What's that?
I'm an Audible guy too.
Audible, yeah, it's pretty handy. Like I was listening to a podcast when I walked down the beach just before, with my earbuds, and it's a toss-up though. Like, do I want to hear the birds tweeting, because that's pretty amazing, or do I want to listen to something that I already want to hear? So that's a tough decision for the day, isn't it?
Yes, I like that.
Thing of beauty, or this thing of different beauty.
There's
a noise outside, which is a man with a machine laying fiber optic cable down our road, so we'll get better internet shortly.
There you go.
So I used to meditate a lot a number of years ago, and I read somewhere, and this is what I experienced, was that I had my arms, on a chair, like just on the arms of a big chair, and a soft chair, and I could lean back. It was very comfortable. And when I got into what this book described, whatever book it was, as an alpha state, then my arms will become completely light. They didn't move, but my arms became weightless. And the book said that is an indicator that you've reached an alpha state, which is a state of very deep relaxation. So, and I wouldn't always get there, but when I did, it was extraordinary. It was just so pleasurable. It's kind of one of those really fun things to get into that state. It's just so deeply pleasurable, satisfying.
Yeah, I was listening to one of the Joshua's podcast, and this sort of, I think it was a question Patrick had asked, and I don't know if it was last week, and it kind of like the Joshua's response is kind of hit me, and I've been playing with it for the last couple of days. When he said, how can you move from this limiting belief that things are not working out perfectly to the empowering belief that things are always working out perfectly? That's the journey. That's life in itself right then and there. Like if you can do that, then you can if you can accept that, then you can get through anything. And you kind of think about fear, or when fear arises, it's always about the unknown, right? It's always about either the future or things. Fears are based upon things that never happened, right? Which is super interesting, to me. I mean, it could be based upon a past fear of something happening again, which I understand, right?
Yeah.
But for me, and I don't know about for other people, but for me, it's always about something that hasn't yet happened.
Yeah, so we do. A lot of people, most of us, all of us, have experienced and maybe still experience fear of the future, you might say. In other words, I'm worried that this thing might happen. And people very quickly talk themselves into a situation as if that is happening, when clearly it's not, right? It's just a thought at this stage. And so once you realize that that's just a thought and that thing may or may not happen, it's like, okay, why don't I choose a different thought? And with what you were saying about accepting everything as perfect, if you believe that you created your reality and that your reality is the perfect vibrational match to you at this moment, then kind of by definition, it must be perfect because it is your creation and a reflection of your vibration. And we all have thought in the past that the way that we would achieve more happiness or satisfaction is to change some external circumstance, whether it was a relationship with somebody, a marriage or whatever, or feeling loved or money or whatever the thing was, health. We always thought, well, if I change that external thing, then I'll feel good. But this thinking flips it around 180 degrees and says, well, actually, the external thing you're talking about is a reflection of your vibration. You created it. So it's kind of like if you're looking in the mirror and you scowl at yourself, pull a face, you can't go to the mirror and change your face. The only way you can do it is to change yourself, and then the mirror will reflect it back to you.
Yeah, it's it kind of just puts it, for me, that statement was just like, it puts it so simply, yet obviously it's not simply accomplished, but it is simple when you just think, if you can just accept right now as perfect.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, every moment, unless you're drowning, I guess, unless you're in a completely aggravated state where you're physically being threatened, right? And that physicality is occurring at that moment. You pretty much have everything you need at that moment.
Yeah. That is a really, really powerful insight and thing to remember. Like many spiritual teachers will say, be in the moment, but this is taking us to another level, because if we have a fear, which is about health, money, love, relationships, whatever that fear is, then you say to yourself, well, in this exact moment, do I have everything I need? And
right.
In this exact moment, yes, well, I do. So therefore, what do you think you need? I mean, then you come back, well, I'm projecting into the future, and I come up with a thought, and the thought is unpleasant and it's a fearful thought. So you can choose to have a different thought in that particular moment.
But in reality, in reality, we choose a fearful thought in most cases instead of and nothing has happened. So nothing has happened yet. We are choosing fearful thoughts, which to me is so interesting. You talk about what we do, right, and why we do it. It's kind of insane when you think about it. We choose to think that I'm going to lose my job, I'm not going to pay my bills, versus I'm going to get, a $10,000 check in the mail. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, if you really think about it, if we just think, I have everything I need right now and it's perfect, versus, oh my God, how am I going to pay my kids' tuition? How am I going to do, right? We tend to go down, and in for a minute, I was walking by the TV and the TV was on, and it was like, or I don't know, it was an Instagram. It was like, hey, are you saving for the future? Don't end up like this guy without saying. You're like, holy cow, everything out there, everything surrounding us is worry, fear, be afraid. You're not ready.
Sadly, as you know, I do a lot of online marketing, and we know that advertising that speaks to people's fears is the most effective. You can have pleasure advertising where you show people something pleasurable, but fear-based advertising is far more effective than pleasure-based advertising, because that is the mass consciousness of the planet at this point, that people are still in the current of fear. So when one does what you said, start to worry about a future thing, like, have I got enough money to pay the tuition next month or next quarter or whenever it is, we choose to dip into the current of fear, and we immerse ourselves in the current of fear. So we could also choose, as you're suggesting, to dip into the current of love or positive emotions. Because the thing about fear, and we were talking about this just a minute ago, is there are two kinds of fear. There is a rational fear, which is when you're scared of something which could cause you bodily harm or kill you. And if we didn't have that, we would never get much out of childhood. We would die very young and would never actually get to do whatever it is we're meant to be doing, never get to our age. So a rational fear, a fear that is rational, is one that will keep you alive and avoiding bodily harm. But pretty much every other kind of fear is completely irrational. And they're just thoughts, and you can, as you say, you can choose a different thought. So those are the two kinds of fears, really, is rational and irrational.
Yeah, it's funny when you said it too. So, I was just talking to my, one of my daughters, and it was unbelievable. She had, failed a test. I spent a lot of time failing tests. And I was like, okay, that's all right. And she had literally gone off the deep end. I'm like, she does very well, very smart, has great grades. And I was just like, well, it didn't affect any of their GPA. And I'm like, and I see everybody. I see everybody there's a school. In their high school, it's 4,500 kids. They all buy into this. Oh my God, I got a bad grade. My parents are going to like me. I'm not going to get into college. This goes on my permanent record. Think about all of these irrational, right, thoughts that you just pointed out. Not one of these things that occurred is going to affect her 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 months from now. Yet it is for today and maybe tomorrow and maybe the weekend. It will be all she's thinking about. Anything and everything. That's how society, it's crazy. Society gets us, instead of saying to us, like, oh my God, that's great. Like, we'll get it back next time. That's, we'll figure it out. We'll do whatever. She will go out now. She will try to change conditions. I don't want to go to practice tonight. I can't go to dinner. I got to focus. I got to, everything she will do to something that happened already, can't change it.
Yeah.
But she'll change every condition moving forward to address something that happened in the past, thinking that it will change what happened.
Yeah.
It's prevalent. It's even
Yeah.
people at work, right? Even people you work with, you're like, what? Like it's prevalent, right? In our society, where we grab hold of a fear, and everybody's fear is lack, right? I'm not going to have enough money. I'm not going to be able to pay the bills. I'm going to get fired, whatever it may be. And it just permeates throughout whatever environment you're in. Like working from home versus working in an office, it's unbelievable to me. Like that office culture, whatever it may be, you become a part of it, and there's usually a strong fear base.
Yeah.
It's
once you recognize it, and you see it, it doesn't affect you, and you realize that you can consciously choose not to be drawn into that current of fear. But
it does sort of, right? It does sort of. There's this twinge, right? You get a little wobble, as Gary likes to call it.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, whoa, hey, whoa.
Yeah.
Wait, am I putting myself in danger?
Yeah. Am I missing something? Like maybe they got it right and I got it wrong.
Right. Wow, that's exactly what I was about to say. That's brilliant. Yeah, you're right. Right. It's crazy, isn't it? Like it's a little bit like. But then Gary said something today, and it was really sort of this like steadying comment. If you look back a year ago, are you better off today? And if you went a year ago and you said that, and you kept going back, wouldn't it always be you? And I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right. I guess if you look at it that way, you're like, yeah, I guess I am better off.
Did you do that exercise 2 or 3 days ago? The plot, which said, write down the ways in which your life is better today than it was 10 years ago.
I did, and that was something I think in one of the other ones, but I did write that down, and I loved it. And to me, I couldn't stop writing.
Right. Well, for some reason, in 2011, 10 years ago, and I found it in Evernote, because I'm a big user of Evernote. I got everything there. I've got thousands of notes. I found this note I had made along the lines of 2011 was this, and it was the most horrendous year. Like I was staggered. Should I tell you what happened in 2011?
Yeah, I want to hear.
So One of my sisters-in-law had a terminal illness and died. The other sister-in-law was ill and then died 2 years later. And my wife at the time was in the latter stages of dementia and would die 2 years after that. I had a business in Australia, and with my cousin, it got very messy and became litigious. I sold one of my houses.
You're a barrel of laughs.
What's that? What's that?
You were a barrel of laughs back then.
Yeah. I sold one of my houses because I needed the money. I had legal issues within the family around my wife's illness, and I ended up in court. There was a reasonable earthquake, then a big earthquake, and so the house got badly damaged, and we lost a lot of stuff. So there was the earthquake and all the insurance claims. One of our websites, the development just kind of went off track. That was before we took over ourselves. I had a Mercedes-Benz, which cost me in 2005 or 6, 195,000 New Zealand dollars. So that's like 130, 140,000 American. It was an AMG, right?
Yeah. Oh, those are the best.
5.5 liter AMG. And so I sold it. And as I sold it, the dealer went broke, and I lost, I think, 25 grand on that, which was like, what sort of manifestation event is that? Like, it's just, what's the chance of that happening? I discovered that a family member who I was very close to had an eating disorder, had cash flow issues, and I sold all my stocks.
Wow. Yeah. If I look back on 2011, I went, I have emails, so I don't do Evernote, but I kept emails. I have emails from like 2005, and like emails that have like and I still do. Like people that write, I always say, I learned early on that if you don't want what you say in public, on a recording, on a voicemail, on the New York Times, don't say it.
Don't say it. Yeah.
Right. So I keep emails that would, if they were on the cover of New York Times, people would be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I look back at that point in time, and we were running out of money. We were just bringing in our new investor. Our existing investors wanted to go out. My ex-business partner at the time was going off the deep end, and he's just a cancer as a cultural human being. And it was all this infighting back and forth. We had to get legal representation as well. And I'm reading through this, and I'm reading some of these emails, and they're just vicious. They're vicious.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this was my life.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel the same. Yeah.
So I was handling the marketing. The way we broke it up was I was handling. We had 3 business partners. A woman, brilliant, smart, great. She couldn't take it. She pulled the ripcord and jumped out of the plane. Halfway through, she couldn't take it. She made the smart choice. Anyway, I handled the product, the sourcing, the marketing, and the sales. He handled the finances, the networking, and the PR. And I would get emails at like 4:30 in the morning on a Monday. Retail sales come in Sunday night, like around midnight. And that's just how it happens. You get them from like Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom's, like all the retailers will send them in Sunday night, right? It's a Sunday through Saturday sales cycle, not a Monday through Sunday. Anyway, and he would find, and we were in, hundreds of stores. He would find the worst 10 stores. And I would get a blasted email. He would copy the board on it about, even if our sales were up, these are our great markets. What are you doing? We should, every single Monday. For like 4 or 5 years, this went on.
Wow.
And I had saved some of those. And I'm like, and I kept saying, we're up 25% over last year. Like, leave it alone.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I got to the point where I would get up at like 5 a.m, stressed out, like clenched, teeth, and get my cup of coffee, and I would just respond, an email back, you moron. I was like, and this is how, this went on for years, but this was my life in 2011. And I was like, man.
The thing is that you and Gary and I have some similarities in our journey, which I'll characterize it from my point of view, and it may or may not resonate with you, but from a high perspective, I was embarking on a spiritual journey, but I didn't actually know that in 2011. It was when I hit a rock bottom, maybe 2 years later, that I had turning point, and started really taking responsibility for every area of my life, and realized that I created all the stuff I didn't want. So therefore I should be able to create stuff I do want. And it's taken me till quite recently to learn how to do that, and why I kept inadvertently attracting things I didn't want, which is about the wobble and the vibration. But my point is that I was rooted in this persona, which was about what I own and what I did, and I wanted people to know that. And so my status and meaning and purpose was all around my business and money persona. And if I had realized that, then I could have just jumped across to the other side of the river and started on a spiritual or inner journey at that time, but I didn't. And it's because I wasn't listening to myself. It was like my inner self would be bashing me about the ear saying, you aren't listening. And if you're not listening, what about if I chuck that car away and you lose all that money on that car and you're still not listening? Oh, for heaven's sake, I gave you that serious slap around the ears and you still didn't listen. So what am I going to do now? How do I ever get you to listen? I know we'll just pretty much destroy everything. And then when you hit rock bottom, maybe then you'll look up and think, oh, maybe there's a better way. Maybe that stuff didn't mean anything. And then it started for me with this random thing. I may have told you about this, that I woke up one morning and I looked at my Kindle on my phone, and a book which I had not been reading, it was a Wayne Dyer book. And I used to read his Real Magic book a lot. I used to read it all the time. It's a very good book. Anyway, this book was open on my Kindle. I have no idea why or how. And it was open at a particular page with a particular passage, which had the message I needed at that exact moment. So a lot of stuff has happened to me electronically like that. So I've now learned that when random things pop up on one of my screens somewhere, in the past I would have thought, what the hell's that, and get rid of it. But now I think, I have no idea where this has come from or why it's here. Let me see what it is. And it's extraordinary how much information I attract in that way. Anyway, so my point is that I kind of had to lose everything about my old life and my old persona before I would actually listen to my inner self and get on my journey. But wouldn't it be nice if I could have worked it out and I could have kept all that stuff and still, yeah.
I feel the same way. I think I went through the same sort of, exposure. I mean, it built for years, and I was the same way. In 2014, we actually finally. So 2011, and 3 years later, boom. And then at that point, I still didn't get it. And it took 2015 till they finally, they held you by your ankles and pushed you down the stairs when you just were, boom, boom, boom. Now do you get it? And, even then I didn't. And it took me a few years, even after that, a year or two, to really sort of to get it. I'm in a similar situation now, right? Which is super interesting, but where this office that I'm running, this the consumer side of it, and then there's a clinical practice, and the clinical practice is really being run by this tyrant, and it's not. The turnover rate's 80%. People aren't happy, and like I don't experience it though. Like I get some. There was some conversation the other day, and someone said, that's what I pay you for. And I'm like, and I looked at him and I was like, you don't, that's not why you pay me. And honestly, take the job. Like, I don't care. And I was like, no, like, I'm not doing it. And it was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I was kind of like, nope, I don't care. And it was like, interesting. I was like, wow, I really don't care.
Wow.
I'm like, yeah. And I said to him, that's when my wobble kicked in. And I wanted to defend myself and prove myself right. So and I'm like, why did I even care about proving myself right? And that was the after conversation. I'm like, let him be whatever he wants to be, let him be. Like, and it's so his whole conversation is, it's interesting when he talks to people and he goes out, he's like, they're disrespecting me, they're stealing from me, they're not doing, and it's one giant limiting belief that he's living in right now, and experiencing on his own. And I sit back and I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like,
once you see it, because the whole concept that somebody could be disrespecting someone else, it's a very interesting thing, because as you say, first of all, he because of his limiting beliefs and what he wants to explore, he's he's attracting those events to him, and he's not actually realizing that they are for his edification. He's fighting against them. But all of that aside about attracting that until you work out what's going on, in a way, it's not possible for one person to disrespect another. Like, it's only if someone throws that ball at you, you don't have to catch it, which is what you said about the job, right? They threw the ball at you and said, this is what I pay you for. It's like, you put your hands down and let the ball bounce away. It's like, there goes that ball, and I'm not catching that thing. But the idea that someone can disrespect you is merely a thought anyway, right? Because that person doesn't actually know anything about you, really. They don't know you. And what they think about you is a reflection of them more than of you anyway. So in a way, there is no such thing as one person disrespecting another, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And the interesting part is that I'm outside of this. So this is going on here, and I'm out here, and there are bits and pieces. Like we just said, but I am not like he is, and he's a lovely man, but he is just gone off the deep end. And I see him 6 months from now crashing and burn. I mean, you see it. You're like, and it's because he's not addressing it. It's getting worse, and he's bringing more people in to a circle that are feeding this fear, feeding these limiting beliefs, and together they're joining. And when you start seeing those emails, at 2 a.m, at 3 a.m, you're like, okay, you're full blown. Like, that's it. You're done. Like, you need to step away, like, and literally go into a rehab situation, because the only way. So what I was wondering is, like, how do you help that? I guess the answer is you don't help them unless they ask for it.
Well, that's true. I think being alongside someone like that and not being triggered by any of it, and being the essence of calm, because it's not affecting you, it's not happening to you, but being alongside them in an empathetic or empathic way, I think is, if we're all connected and we're all one, as many spiritual teachers say, then if you could sort of just hold the person in unconditional positive regard or love, or whatever you want to call it, and just be there, I mean, that may help. But on the other hand, if he's really, really, really fizzing with that thing, caught up in the storm, then he's not really going to respond to much at all. Who knows? I mean, it's not your job to try and create in his reality, but it is good to be there in a non-judgmental way, knowing this person is exploring. I mean, that's the thing, is people might say, I really don't like that guy, or I hate that guy because he says this and does that and makes me feel bad, blah, blah, blah. But if you forget about all of that and just say, well, this guy's exploring something pretty intensely and it must be very unpleasant, and realize that it's not a good or a bad thing, it's just what he's choosing to do right now, then you can hold him in unconditional positive regard, especially since in some ways you and I have probably been where he is, where things are out of control or feel out of control, and you more and more furiously try to control. And the more you try and control it, the worse it gets.
And that, by the way, you just, without even knowing the whole situation, that's exactly what it is. He's taken micromanaging to the next level, which honestly is the kiss of death for any, and that for any business, any situation.
That's how whack-a-mole got invented, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I care for this man and as I care for everybody. Right. And I want to help him, but he's not listening. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I learned the hard way that everybody's not ready for your message. And if you do try to jam that message down, that will end. Yeah. That will end poorly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You say something and either it resonates or it doesn't, or they might think about it sometime later, or they may just wonder where your source of calm comes from, and then in their own way might inquire a little. There's also the whole concept of the emotional guidance system that we talk about, right?
I love that. And there was this thing that, and I think he said, Joshua, I was listening to the podcast 325, and I really liked, he said, he had said a few things. So the reality is created by the non-physical. It's overseen by the inner self, and you're guided through this experience by your emotions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so if I'm feeling good, it means I'm accepting the reality as I created. If I'm feeling bad, I'm creating resistance on that reality.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
it's
It
very
is that
simply
simple. It's like a
said.
traffic light situation, right? It's like a green or
Boom.
red traffic light. That's it. There's no orange. It's like green means that you're feeling good, and you're feeling good because you are seeing things from the same perspective as your inner self. So you are in complete alignment because you and your inner self both are agreeing. And last time we spoke, I think we talked about the example of you see your daughter, you love her, you feel really good. It's wonderful to see her. And your higher self's like, yeah, this is awesome. And this is awesome. And you and your higher self or inner self are in full agreement. So when you feel bad about something, any kind of negative emotion, what we tend to do is to try and avoid it, shut it down, get rid of it, which is what this guy you're talking about at work is doing. But unfortunately, that's never going to work. And you can see that he's spiraling out of control with it, because the negative emotion is purely the red light has popped up, right? So seeing your daughter is the green light, you feel good. The red light is, I feel negative emotion. What's that telling me? It's telling me that I'm seeing things differently to my inner self, that I've got a limiting belief, which is preventing me from seeing the perfection of the moment that I created incidentally. So as soon as you feel a negative feeling, instead of trying to avoid it, or which is what we do because it's unpleasant, the real secret is, okay, what is this telling me? It's telling me I have a limiting belief. Well, what is that limiting belief? And how do I kind of decommission it? How do I reduce its intensity? And, we have that form that we use countless times to actually work through that until it becomes automatic in the head. But that's really the whole point, isn't it? That your emotional guidance system, if you're feeling good, you're in alignment. And if you've got a negative, unpleasant emotion, then you're out of alignment. You're not seeing things the same way as your inner self, and you have a limiting belief. And if you can uncover that, you're on your way.
Yeah, it's and he's in this struggle and effort where he's like, I'm working 14-hour days, and he's a hardworking guy, and you and I have been there where we've been. And I tried to explain to him, I'm like, I've been where I've been responsible for 100 people's payroll. Like, I get that, right? I get the pressure, right? I get it's 24 hours and I don't have the money in the account. Like, I have been in business situations where I am like literally scared unbelievably out of my pants on how I'm going to deal with this. And I've had to send emails to employees, paycheck's not coming Friday, it's coming Monday. And then had to struggle the entire week, try to find it, right? And then at midnight on Sunday, you find a situation or a bill, and it comes Monday, and you deal, and you struggle. And I'm like, so
Yep.
That's where he is. He's
Yep.
at that point where, and if anybody talks differently, he just jams it down their throat. There's no listening. There's no absorbing. It's all pushing, struggle, effort, pushing. And I've been there, right? And I want to help. And I think that's really the saddest part, is that I want to help, but maybe it's not for me to help. Maybe he's got a hit.
Yeah, I think the help doesn't come in the traditional package that we always assumed it came in. It actually is to hold the man in unconditional regard, send him love and ask for nothing in return, which is a quote from Wayne Dyer from way back. And it's not to try and change anything in his reality, but just to let him know that he's supported and appreciated, and that and the feeling of the thought behind it for you is, oh, I see he's exploring this. It must be very unpleasant. And it's a very intense exploration. So, clearly he could be on the cusp of some great insight.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. That's a really good way to look at it.
You mentioned, no, sorry, carry on. I got something else I want to say, but it's a different topic.
No, go right ahead. Mine was just.
Well, on one of those podcasts the other day, I was listening, and you mentioned Patrick, and he asked a question, and it was around making sales calls was one of the things, and he didn't really enjoy sales calls, and a lot of people don't. I mean, there's entire books written about call reluctance and all the rest of it. And he does some digital marketing or something, I think. And I was walking up the hill listening to this podcast, and I suddenly thought, sales calls, I can't remember the last time I did a sales call. And then I thought, oh, well, where does all the client work come from? And it was blindingly obvious, but I had not realized that we do zero marketing, even though we're an online marketing business. We do zero advertising for our business. Like, we run Facebook and Google ad campaigns for countless people around the world. And the client work just comes, like it just arrives and it just keeps coming. And it's been like that for years. And we got rid of the clients we didn't like working with, and we only work with people we like now. But I hadn't realized what that actually meant, that I'm managing somehow to attract a steady flow of work with people we love working with. Like, it seemed blindingly obvious, but I hadn't realized that I was doing that and what that actually meant. There's no effort and struggle in that pipeline.
I was just thinking, because the way this is sort of going, and I'm excited and doing some great stuff, but we're about to go into a raise, right? And the emotional side, is an opinion, right? And sharing, and people can make their own choices. But I just said to myself, I'm not going to be involved in this again. Like I'm saying, and I just said, I'm like, okay, universe, bring me something different. Like I'm done. Like I'm like, I'm not going to go through a situation where somebody is going to crash and burn, even though I have a sense based upon my spiritual side, and it's as an outside society condition, I don't have anything that's going to, like, and I'm still, as a spiritual as I am, I'm still working within the confines of society, right? We're going to do a raise. We got to put, the bank and all this, there's still things we have to do, right? There are requirements, right? The business plan is done, and the business plan can't be all fluff. And I feel it makes me feel good. You got to put numbers and you got to put some accuracy in there, just because that's how society, right, requires it. Not that it's a bad thing. But I was like, and I said to myself, even this week, I'm like, okay, it's just not worth it. Like, I don't want to do this and I like what I do, but I don't want to be a party to a situation that doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't make other people feel good. I'm like, what a waste. Like, what a waste of energy. But I like the man, and I want to help him, and I want to share my 35 years of experience. I said to him, I hate to tell you this, you can't teach me anything about what we do. You could teach me a lot about your field, but you know nothing about my field, like zero. Like, so I don't understand why we're having this conversation. Like, if you want to teach me about then hey, I'm all ears. But literally, I have forgotten more than you'll ever know in my field. So let's just, like, enough. Like, I don't, like, you can't stop yelling and, stamping your feet and saying, well, I don't care. It's just what I want. And I'm like, then you do it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
It's just like, and I'm like, okay, well, and now am I being obstinate, or should I have just said, okay, and a love? And I'm like, well, wait a minute, there is. And then it came back to what we talked about last week. Like, where is truth? And I'm like, well, is truth just acting in love? And is me telling him, like, I'm not going to do it? Is that just me being resistant? Like, what role am I supposed to be playing in this manifestation event for him?
None, because really, it's his manifestation event, right? You can't create in his reality. So
right, but I'm playing some sort of role, right? He has me involved there. I have no idea what I'm doing, right? Do I engage in it, or do I just walk away and be like,
well, no, I think that you stay in your calm place. You act from your authentic being. You act authentically, and that's really all you can do, is just be your calm, authentic self, who's not being triggered by all this stuff. And he may notice. I had a slightly similar thing. It's not as extreme with somebody I work with on a particular project, and she's extraordinarily accomplished woman. Like, she's just amazing, very, very, very clever, and she's used to running projects, and she's very good at it. And she's got an MBA from one of the top business schools in the entire world, and she's also got an accounting qualification. In her spare time, she did a master's in science recently, and she also does very high level international government consulting work. Like, she's the real deal. Like, she's a wonderful person. She's very giving and very, very clever, and she's accustomed to her views being right. So we've been talking about some online marketing I'm doing for this business we're involved in, and she keeps asking these questions, which are kind of not even 101. It's like, oh my God, you know so much about so many things, and less than zero about this. And then so she kept coming with these questions and comments and observations, which were of no value whatsoever. And in the end, she said something I've never heard her say. She said to me on WhatsApp yesterday, "Oh, actually, I know nothing about this. I won't say anymore." And I thought, yes, that's it, because it's just tedious. It's like, oh my God, I can't begin to explain it.
So that's a great question. So here's the question: is our inability to appreciate the question, because I literally have zero appreciation. Like he asks questions, I literally want to tell him, shut up, stop talking, do not say a word. Like, you're hurting yourself right now. Like, these are the things I want to say to him. I don't, right? But is my inability to say to him, wow, I really appreciate that, and that's certainly understandable. But if we look at it this way, this might, is that my ego? Is that my short-sightedness? Is that my inability?
I think so. You've caused me to think about this, and I suspect for me there is a twinge of an unworthiness reaction, and the unworthiness reaction is, to some extent, it feels like she's questioning, are you doing this right? Do you know what you're doing? What about this company? They seem to be all over. Every time I look online, this competitor seems to be there and we're not. When I do a Google search, they come up and we don't. And so even though I haven't started doing most of those things, and I have the real data on all that, right? Because I've been monitoring it with a very sophisticated paid SEO tool. So I know exactly what's going on. This thing monitors it 24/7, has been for months. And so, but why would it matter to me that she asks a dumb question? And I think it's because there's still some residual, I feel challenged and I feel slightly threatened. And she's saying, do you really know what you're doing? Like, she verbally, she says, you're an expert and it's wonderful you're doing this, all the rest of it. But when she asks all these questions, at some level, I think I still feel some unworthiness and I feel like I'm being challenged. So thank you, because next time she does say something like this, and there will be a next time, then I'm going to respond in the loving way that you just described. So thanks for that.
I see, and I just wrote that down. You just said it, and that's exactly how I felt. You really put it into perfect words. I felt like I was being challenged, and I do feel, just because of how I came up in a non-traditional way, right, without the Ivy League degree, that how dare you challenge me? Like, how dare you challenge me? It's like,
but it's deeper than that, right? Like, you might say it's because I wasn't Ivy League and I grew up in the school, I had knocks and all the rest of it, but actually it is, for both of us, simply about worthiness, right?
Yeah, you're 100% right.
Yeah, so both of these people have given us the gift of being able to improve our sense of worthiness or worth. And that was a manifestation event for both of us, because we felt a negative emotion. Why did we? Well, we felt challenged. And why would that matter? Well, because you pushed my unworthiness button and I didn't enjoy it. It felt awful.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm going to get that t-shirt. I'm going to get that on a t-shirt. You pushed my unworthiness button.
And it felt awful. So I got my NASA t-shirt on that I bought.
I went
to Cape Canaveral, in Florida.
That's awesome there. Yeah.
Kennedy Space Center. That is extraordinarily good. Yeah, it was wonderful.
My unworthiness button. I actually, you know what? That's exactly. I'm going to get that on a t-shirt. I love it. But that's exactly, and it's so funny. And that there's been a series of these of those, and I call them micro, right? They're really micro manifestation events, because I'm now identifying, and I'm like, why do I feel queasy or uneasy about that?
Yeah.
So even on like a few different things, socially and professionally, like I'm sort of stepping out and things are happening without my involvement, when in the past they've been in my involvement. And I'm like, wait a minute, they can't do that without asking me. Like, in my mind, and I'm like, whoa, why did I just say that? I'm like, I just had like a little mini event, and I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm like, holy cow, I need to just, okay, first and foremost, everyone has a say. Everybody can say what they want. It's all a group think. And like, I don't have to take it personally. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. So right? if you can reduce it down to a minor annoyance, and then you can actually notice that you're annoyed and identify the limiting belief and lower its intensity, then you don't have to go to the full-blown manifestation event.
The idea is to get it to these micro events, right? Where you're able to
Yep.
say,
Yep.
oh my goodness, right? And those manifestation event forms help you. And then you prove and go, I am, and then the big thing is, wow, that's not targeted at me. That's for them. Like, that's the whole thing. Is like, whatever is said in the question isn't about you or me. It's about them. Like, they're saying that, right? Like, we're not creating in their reality. They're saying that in their reality for a reason. I don't know what the reason is.
Well, in this
right?
particular case, this person, she tries to control things, in an ironclad sort of way. So
it's control.
She believes she would, if I asked her, I'm sure she would say that her ability to manage and monitor everybody and everything in a business is why she's so successful. Whereas I look at it and think, oh my goodness, you really are stuck in effort and control, and you take on more than you need to. And occasionally she's like, she asked me questions about, because I've simplified my life and she knows that, and hers is still very complicated. And she said, we've decided we need to simplify our life. I've seen how you're living your life and it's far simpler, and we want to do that as well. And how did you get there? And, I just had a, minor life crisis, and, everything I had, I destroyed it all so I could wake up and smell the coffee. Yeah, it's just pretty simple. I'll even show you how to do it. So,
nuclear, poof, that's how it happens, right?
The nuclear solution.
Well, it's funny because if I was to go back 10 years, if we were to go back and it was so funny, we did have very similar situations. I'll send you some of these emails because honestly, like, the emails are insane. Like, you're like, how do people talk to each other that way? Right. So, but if we were to go back and at that point in time and put $20 million in both of our pockets 10 years ago or 11 years ago, I'd still end up where I was today, having not only not lost the $1 million+ and plus businesses I lost, the 20 million plus businesses plus I would still be here today. It's that old adage that money given to you at that point in time, however you had, I never had the windfall you had all at once. It was tied into different things. So no matter what we had or I had, it was going to be gone by the time I had lost it. No matter how much I had, like, I was headed down that path. And I see this guy, and he's McLaren and his Aston Martins and his Lamborghinis. And I'm like, dude, it doesn't make a difference how much money you have. You're going to end up, and I see it like 6 months from now, I see you and I literally visually see him in a rehab center. And I'm like, don't do this to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, don't go down that. But maybe, like, I had to go through it. To your point, you had to, maybe this is just what he needs. And we're there, and I'm there to pick him up and support him when he's done. I don't know. But
it's some of what you feel is probably when we see someone else going through something unpleasant, one of the reasons we feel bad about it or get bad feelings is because we imagine what it would feel like if you were in that position, right? We imagine, if I was in that position, this would feel awful, or I've been in a similar position and it was awful. So in other words, you're imagining something which is, it's happening to you when it's not, it's happening to him. And so
maybe great relief.
If we can actually think about it as a movie or a stage play or a sitcom or something on TV, like, just sit and watch it, and you might get worked up by it because that's half the fun of going to the movies, is to get emotionally triggered. But it's a movie, and you walk out at the end of it and it's like, you finish laughing or dry your eyes or whatever it is, and that the whole thing was just a voluntary journey you went on, but it didn't actually change your life. But
it's the same thing as life. A movie, you're participating in that emotional roller coaster, and the same thing with the illusion of struggle and effort, right? You participate in that emotional roller coaster of struggle and effort and control, and it ends up in the same place. At the end of the ride, you're like, what was I doing? Like, and it's over and it's gone, and it has no meaning. You're like, that's insane. And then, like, for you and I, it's just a memory. It's no different than
a roller coaster ride, right? Because you get on the roller coaster, there's apprehension, and then you go along, chug, 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 and then you may go up a hill, and then suddenly you drop and it's all on. And then for the next few minutes, it's like terrifying, absolutely terrifying, but exhilarating. And then you pull back into the roller coaster station, chug, 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 and it stops, and the safety bar goes up, and you get out, and you're all adrenaline buzzed, and it's like, okay, let's go home and buy a can of Coke, let's get a burger. That was fun. I lived, and it was exciting. And so if you can look at it in that way, that, well, it's not happening to me, it's not my experience, but it is triggering some things in me. Why is that? And as I say, if you hold the person in unconditional regard and realize that he's exploring his own thing in his own pace, and it's not you, it's not happening to you, and it may remind you of unpleasant stuff, and which I guess also means that there's still some limiting beliefs around what happened, around the intensity of those feelings, or you want to avoid those feelings again, perhaps, is all it is.
I think it's just that I now know the influence that can be impressed upon me, right? So and then where that influence goes. So am I truly, and the question is, am I truly okay? Do I truly have faith in the universe where if this was to blow up again, that the universe would catch me and land me softly someplace else? And that, to me, is the question I'm going through myself. Do I truly believe in the universe? Do I truly have faith in the universe? And the answer is yes, I do. I can say that. But is that the belief I have? I'm like, I got here because of my faith in the universe. And now I think I think I've run my course. Would I like to continue? Absolutely. But the question is, do you want to continue in a situation where there's so much unhappiness, not in me, and I'm not experiencing that unhappiness, but I see it for those people, and I see that they're experiencing these massive manifestation events, massive. And I'm just like, I'm seeing it like all around me, and I'm like, holy cow! Some guy quit, and he went and posted like a 45-minute video about his justification in quitting a 6-figure plus job and all these different things, and I'm like, dude, that's just one giant manifestation event, like on YouTube now. Like, I don't even know what to say, right? Well, it's all of this crazy stuff and maybe it's just because I'm aware of it now.
Well, there is that thing as well, because the more you do this work, the more you become emotionally sensitive. And I noticed that I see things or things happen, and other people around me are completely unaffected by it. And I'm feeling the intensity of that emotional event very strongly. But I look around and I think, oh, nobody's even noticed that. And I'm feeling, oh, that was serious. And then I think, oh, that's me that sees it that way. Other people don't. Whereas I tried to stuff all that down in the past, whereas now I realize I was actually very emotionally sensitive all along.
Yeah, and there's a point where there's like 4 or 5 people around a table, and they're what one guy is the main guy is everybody's disrespecting, they're stealing, nobody's doing what they should. These other people are feeling inferiority. I'm not good enough. They're fighting, and I'm like sitting back, seeing all of these elements going on and going, all I see is the limiting beliefs. Like, and I want to go, there's no need for it. And I just said, and then somebody says something to me, and I'm just like I don't even gauge. I'm like, well, whatever. Like, this is your deal. Like, you guys are all having these things, And I remember going through that and wanting somebody to agree with me so bad, and just go, "You're right."
Yes.
I just remember like
that theme of seeking agreement came up in the last few weeks in one of the Joshua Live sessions. That once you realize that a lot of what people say and do is they're seeking agreement, confirmation from others. And they said, once you're aware of it, they said, you'll see it all around you. And it's true. If you look at how many things people do and say, jokes they tell, anecdotes, stories they tell, stuff they quote out of the news, whatever, you realize that they're seeking agreement because they want to feel externally endorsed. And it's
worthiness.
It's worthiness. Yeah.
It's all about, it's what we started the whole conversation about. It's amazing, right? It really comes back to, worthiness. If you agree with me, you validate me, you make me worthy.
Yep, that's right. And it never works, because if you don't feel it inside in the first place, then receiving it from the outside doesn't work anyway. I also noticed that when people try to use flattery on me, which might have made me, purr with pride in the past, whereas now when I hear people thinking they are getting me alongside or getting me to do something they want by flattering me, in the same way that a negative view of me is like, well, that's none of my business, you don't know me. I feel completely inert. I think, oh my God, they're trying to flatter me, as if that's going to make any difference to me. Like, I know my worth, you don't, but don't even try. Like, it's kind of like a childish game. It's like, no, we're grown-ups. You don't need to do that.
So I was on this call yesterday with this group of people, right? These other founders for other businesses. And then at first I saw the call and the agenda, and I was like, this is all the stuff I do. Like, why am I talking to these people, right? And I'm like, and the first couple of minutes in the call, we were all introducing ourselves and what we were doing. And like, when it came to like, talking about our CV, a little resume, I was like, let me tell you what I did, right? I was like, and then all of a sudden I sat back and why am I retarded? Forgive my language, right? What am I doing that is so, just unworthy? And then I took a deep breath and I leaned into the conversation with the two other people saying, wow, you guys are amazing. I would be so honored to partner with you. Help me understand. And then the conversation took a whole different approach, right? I was getting texts from two other people I work with going, why are we on this call? Do you see any merit in the beginning, right? When we were just exchanging resumes. And then when I just said, you're being given an opportunity to talk to some amazing people here. Do it in love. And then boom, and everything changed. In a matter of like the conversation went from ending after like 4 minutes to going on for an hour and a half.
Wow.
It's that idea that, how dare you challenge me? How dare you think that I'm not worthy?
Yeah. Which is the worthiness thing again, right? And
it's all right. It really comes back down there big time. I love the way you said it too. It's like I feel, challenged. Like the question, like, do I know what I'm doing? Are you questioning me?
Yeah. What you were saying before about the universe providing, the way I think about that, well, one of the ways is that I realized looking back that even if things don't go how I thought they would go, or how I imagined I wanted them to go, that things always have worked out for me. So looking back, everything has always worked out for me. And as for what is going to happen tomorrow and the next day, that will work out for me as well. It may not go down the path that I imagine it will, but then again, if you look at any year of your life, if you think about what you contemplated for the year ahead on the 1st of January, and then you get to 31st of December and look back at any year of your life, the way that year panned out, the way it worked out is generally completely different from what you thought would happen on the 1st of January. And if you had been received all that knowledge for the next 364 days on the 1st of January, it would have blown your mind, and it would have been probably terrifying as well. And then when you get to the end of the year, you think, well, that was not expected. I never saw that coming. And then you realize, well, I handled it all easily with aplomb, no problem at all. And so, yes. So, I realized, I guess, that everything always does work out, but it may not work out the way I expected it will.
And it's because we have limited knowledge. We have unknown, right? And it's because we only know a fraction of what the potential is.
Yeah.
And that reinforcing that we only know a potential of what a fraction of what the potential is, I think helps me put things in perspective. But that's I want to be able to feel deep in my soul that, and I think that's that next level, right? Where even Gary was talking about today, that I trust in the universe. It's like, it's so easy. It's just so easy, right? That's, to me, that's the next challenge, the next big step. Like, how do you just like ease into that and be like, yep, it's all okay. It's all going to work out.
Well,
right.
Yeah. I mean, if you do believe that you create your own reality and attract the things from the universe that you need and are a match to, vibrational match to, then the process is at work anyway. And so it's not really, do I trust in the universe or whatever you want to call it to provide? It's like, well, that's happening anyway. How do I get more pleasurable outcomes and fewer unpleasurable outcomes? In other words, it's not, are we swimming in the sea? Yes, we're swimming in the sea. It's like, do I want to be taking mouthfuls of water, or do I want to be breathing nicely above the surface? It's happening anyway. And so it's, well, what kind of experience am I going to have with that?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
It's a little late. It's I got to jump
Yeah.
on a quick call, but man, today was
Yeah.
that was a great conversation. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. That's great. So it's good. Good to see
I
you.
really enjoyed that. Thank you very
Yeah,
much,
yeah,
Rob.
great. See you soon. See you soon, Gary.
Bye bye.
Bye.